because I'm Hispanic. But I was whiter looking than he was. And in the military, same thing. What does that mean to a white man? Now, I mean, all hell breaks loose. Fuck. People be getting their phones out, right? Taking pictures. I mean, okay, so what does that mean?
All right.
To a Latino, 72-year-old, very wealthy guy. What does that mean?
My company's rolling up technology development companies that...
Pure tech.
Advanced manufacturing and sustainment technology.
Okay, I read your shit. I'm sorry to say, I actually read your shit, but for the pub. So you're rolling up what again?
Advanced manufacturing and sustainment technology companies.
Okay.
Serving the aerospace and defense industries.
And the picture of that guy you got down on the bottom of your paper?
I don't think he's part of it anymore.
No, but I mean, you have a picture there of a guy, remember? Who's kind of your idol or whatever? What was that guy? Who is he?
That was a different iteration. Yeah.
But what was his name? Yeah, and who was he?
A Nobel Prize winner.
In what?
Physics.
Not what you do. He was smart. Correct. Okay, just the shit I have to read. Unfucking believable. Okay, now continue.
So aerospace and defense industry is an amazing place to be right now. Ever since Trump's victory was announced this time last year, aerospace and defense indices have gone like this. We experienced a 30% growth virtually overnight. About the same time, Boeing announced they were going to start a third business unit called Boeing Global Services. And they started this in the early 2000s to compete with Airbus because they're neck for neck, sales are healthy, and they recognized early on that sales, or 15 years ago, sales alone were not going to keep them on top. So they developed this third business unit and spent 15 years and hundreds of millions of dollars developing it. And they have broken it into 3 markets. I know you like spreadsheets. So commercial, defense, and space. And they've got 4 segments: logistics, maintenance and modifications, software, or flight analytics, as they like to call it, and training and professional services. So this is what Boeing Global Systems is. And they recently announced a goal to grow this from $14 billion a year revenue to $50 billion in 5 to 10 years, which we all know means during the Trump administration, while the climate is consolidation friendly. So that's their goal, to grow these capabilities. And recently we've seen moves by United Technologies to acquire Rockwell Collins at $30 billion, which is a multiple of 15 times. We saw Northrop Grumman a few days later move to acquire Orbital ATK for $7.8 billion in cash, which is a multiple of 12.5. And we know from history that sustainment technology companies, or sustainment companies, have a roughly 20% operating margin. So if you take that and work backwards with the multiples that we see on those other aerospace companies, we can arrive at a value for the capabilities that will end up in this box. Boeing's going to pay $100 billion to grow $36 billion in top-line revenue for these capabilities.
Wait a minute. We're going to spend $100 billion over the next 5 to 10 years to create $36 billion in top line.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And that top line will then create 20%, in theory, 20%. Correct? So that's spend 100 to get 20%. But to create 36 billion, so 20% of 36 billion is only 7.2 billion. What did I miss something there, or I don't even know what I'm talking about. You all look like you're fucking just...
No, it's right.
I'm right. Thank you. Thank you very much, okay? So you're going to spend 100 billions to make 7.2 billions over the next 5 to 10 years.
No, I think it's 36 billion per annum.
Is it per annum?
Top line revenue.
Okay, per annum. Okay, so
right now they're 14 billion.
Okay, so between the fifth and the 10th year, they expect this money. They're going to spend 100. So they're going to spend 100 all up front, or is it going to be spent over 10 years, or?
I think as they find it opportunistically. And then just recently, yesterday, in fact, they announced a bid to buy Embraer, which is the Brazilian competitor to Bombardier, that tried to partner up with Airbus that they just blocked for a little over $3 billion, I believe. And with the tax bill finalized, Boeing is one of the biggest beneficiaries of that. They expect to get 10% back, which they plan to use for M&A. And they announced that they wanted to do this using M&A. So this is where we live in this matrix. And we're going to be targeting small business innovation, research contract companies that are operating in this space. These are companies I'm familiar with. And the case we evaluated had a sizable stack of paper. Yeah. That the companies.
That's memorialized for time eternal now. The Martians are going to see that in 1,000 years.
And it told me two things.
And he was going to send us another stack. And then Kim called you or emailed you, right?
It was me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
But seeing that stack of paper told me two things. It told me that team had heart and they desperately wanted to do a good job. The second, it told me they didn't know what they were doing. And that's what we see in technology development industries. A lot of folks go out and start companies who have a technical background, and they operate up here for the technical part. But for the business administration, business process, and business development portions, they're out of their realm.
They're clueless.
And since they're subject matter experts in their field, they can achieve a pretty high level of success right off the bat. But they soon hit a ceiling where they can't overcome the administration, human resources, compliance, all those burdens, and they don't have the expertise to do the business development and commercialization to get to the next level. So that's where my team comes in. My team and I have over 200 years of experience in those business areas that these technical folks tend to struggle with. And
but you're a technical person, so you're just you're just less technical than they are.
I was trained in engineering.
Okay, but so you're just less technical than they are, or you've learned to adapt.
I'm adaptable. Yes.
Okay. Darwin, survival of the fittest.
I personally have experienced this frustration. I like to see people make their highest level of contribution, and being in the industry for about a decade, I've met with a lot of people who've expressed frustration. And it's really I call it a resentful distraction, because they want to grow the company and they really love the technical portion of it, but they get pulled away by the administration portion, the business development portion, and they grow to resent it. So it's a great source of frustration.
It's like being married. It's the same model. You start with great intentions. I never knew anybody that got married initially with poor intentions. Well, that's not quite true. I knew a few. But anyway, for the most part, intentions are great, but the road to hell is paved with great intentions. Go ahead. The road to divorce court is also paved with great intentions. Go ahead.
So that's how we're here to help, to free owner-operators to make their return to making their highest level.
So owner-operator is not Boeing. I mean, owner-operators at what level?
No, these are smaller companies.
Okay.
We're initially going to be targeting small business administrator or small business.
Okay, so the subcontractors, are these subcontractors of the Boeings of this world?
In some cases they are. Again, we want to focus on things that provide value to Boeing's top line. So if they're solely a subcontractor to Boeing, that's not ultimately going to help them. So we'll keep that in mind. But we're going to start with smaller companies. And the Small Business Innovation Research Program is amazing. It's been a cornerstone of American defense and other innovations for close to 30 years. Mm-hmm. And some of the notable companies we've seen with SBIR roots are iRobot, which makes the Roomba, the autonomous vacuum cleaner. They also make bomb squad equipment and search and rescue type robots. And Qualcomm, which I think in October received an acquisition bid for $103 billion. So,
by?
I don't recall.
Well, the other company is moving back to the United States from Asia. He went to MIT. He was an immigrant story, a refugee, yada yada. Buddy of I don't know if he's a buddy of Trump's, but a big supporter of Trump's. Anyway, they announced the deal in Oval Office actually.
Then they turned it down.
Yeah, but it's going to be hostile.
So just because they at one point qualified for small business innovation research contracts doesn't mean they still do. It just means they've met a certain milestone in the way they run their business and the way they contract with the government. So it's a good starting point for us. There's a lot of consistency between companies who have set themselves up to do that line of work, which will make the due diligence process easier. But we already know what value we can provide to owner-operators in that market.
And they know that you moved to Colorado from wherever the hell you were.
Yeah, so we have a headquarters in Northern Virginia, near Washington, D.C., where that's the hub of defense and the national labs and whatnot. And Colorado is number one in terms of aerospace employee density. It's number two to Silicon Valley now for software development. It's got 3 of the top 15 technology cities in the country, all within a 2-hour drive: Boulder, Denver, and Colorado Springs. So it's an amazing place to be for aerospace.
Southern California used to be that. El Segundo used to be the place about 5, 6, 7 miles south of the LA airport, up there, and on the way to Palos Verdes. I mean, back in the day, TRW and all these companies used to be headquartered there. Not anymore, but anyway. But okay, so now, what are you buying? What's the deal? What's the scam?
We're still working out the exact method, but we're going to find some of these companies that are purely doing these contracts, and the way these contracts were set up by the federal government is they were intended to be an economic development program, but the economic development program was not intended to be the contract. So the government expects to pay a nominal fee, usually in the range of 7%, for you to develop a product or a service that they would find valuable.
7% of what?
Of the total contract value.
Give me an example.
On a $1 million contract, you would expect to have set aside for just profit or fee
70 grand.
Yes.
Okay, but that contract would then fit into one of these categories here?
And then it's open on how much margin. You can charge whatever margin you want on that. That's what they want. That's the economic development.
But that program already exists in the federal government.
Yes.
Okay.
It's congressionally mandated.
Yeah.
The 11 largest government agencies have to participate in the program, and they have to set aside a fixed % of their budget.
It's a small business.
Yes.
Is it 15, 20% now, or used to be? I don't know now.
Specifically for SIBR, it's in the neighborhood of 2%.
2. So if you have a billion...
Specifically for SIBR, SBIR.
Okay. So they have to subcontract with small enterprises, 2% of if it's 100 billion, 2 billion.
So I think you're thinking of a different program. The prime contractors are also incentivized to work with small business.
Correct.
So there's that, that's separate.
That's 15% that they have their contracts. They need to do with small businesses.
I haven't tapped into that.
Okay, well that's small, and that can be part of SBA driven. And then there's another subset for us, one-eyed Mexican, one-legged, one-eyed Vietnam veterans. There's another one, you know, and the only one that they don't have is for white people. White people get dick. They get nothing. I mean, literally, nothing. I like them, you know. I'm a minority than I am. You know, I've been disadvantaged all my goddamn life. You know. But I mean, will you look now? I don't want you to lose focus, but I mean, there's the joke used to be 35 years ago. Most people think I got my defense fuel contracts because on a set aside. I didn't. I got them straight up with all the other legitimate people. But you get a contract and you're supposed to be on the program. It used to be 7 years, and then you were supposed to, it would wean you off the tit to non-set-aside contracts where you're competing against the big guys. But there's guys that bid, when I was bidding in 1982, to today, in 2017, are still on the set-aside tit.
They call those SIBR mills. They're mills. They just they think the contracts are the economic development, and they're not. And they have a bad reputation. I don't know why they keep getting contracts.
Well, they keep because they have lobbyists. We had some kids that tried to bid on government contracts that was in the top 3 bidders for 3 years in a row. Except they were not physically in the room. And it's a big room, a big auditorium in the bidding process, and the computers and all this. It looks like a Star Wars thing. And